What is up, YouTube? Today we're bringing you guys an updated Odd Eyes Magician deck profile.
Don't lose your way, your mind, we have to be as one.
So a couple of things I wanted to get to cast, guys. First off, the consistent uploads will be coming back. It's something that I understand you guys have kind of gotten getting annoyed with, like, not having consistent uploads, and as long-time subscribers kind of had to put up with inconsistent upload times, but I'm going to get back on track on that. We're going to have uploads Sundays and Fridays for sure, and then an upload in the middle of the week, hopefully on Tuesdays. If not, something comes up, if I'm a little tired after work, I will upload on Wednesday. That's kind of the case today. I just kind of, you know, things come up. So, but you guys will be getting consistent uploads again. I promise you guys it'll. And I'm gonna try to find a day to stream once a week as well. That's in the works. But anyway, second thing, I'm gonna be doing also starting up a bi-monthly podcast, basically twice a month. I'll be doing a podcast with other YouTubers where we chat about stuff. It'll usually be with either dueling book kind of in the background or some kind of game stream or something while we chat. So looking forward to that, guys, as well. And last thing is my Discord has been opened up to the public, so you guys can chat with me, ask me questions, or, you know, post memes or post in the non-safe for work chat but anyway, so Pendulum Magicians. It's probably my favorite deck, and while we are getting Link Summoning, I do feel like this deck still survives and I will have a replay at the end to kind of showcase some of the Link combos I'm working on. But anyway, I kind of want to just to chronograph what this deck would look like, you know, at full power with everything and how it would look, and I just wanted to have it for then, because I won't be going to locals until after the new master rules take effect. But anyway, I also have some changes I'm going to be making to the extra deck as well, and the side deck is a little work. But anyway, we'll go ahead and get to deck profile. So first off, we have 3 copies of Astrograph Sorcerer. So this is a really good card. So its spell effect's kind of irrelevant. It's a scale 1, but the main thing is its monster effect is whenever it's in your hand and a card you control is destroyed by any means, whether it's yours or your opponent, you can special summon it from hand. You can target a card that's in your and you can target a monster that's in your extra deck. So face up in your extra deck, your banished pile, basically anywhere it would have gone after it has been destroyed. You can search a copy of that card with the same name. Because of the way it's worded, you can actually summon this, follow this up after a Solemn Strike. Just kind of allows you one more way to play through those pesky Solemn Strikes. And the search is actually a summoning condition. It's part of the summoning condition, so even if your opponent has something like Skill Drain, because it activates in hand, then hits the board, then searches, I believe it plays through Skill Drain if I'm not mistaken. You guys can correct me in the comments. So it's actually really cool. It also has the effect of Pendulum to summon Zark from your extra deck by banishing the appropriate Xyz Dragon, Pendulum Dragon, Fusion Dragon, and Synchro Dragon monsters. But I don't play Zark, so that's why I don't play it in this list. Then for the Odd Eyes targets, we have 1 Odd Eyes Persona Dragon, 1 Pendulum, 1 Persona, 1 Unicorn. You guys know Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon is one of my favorite cards, and I've only had a set of Ultimate Rares since YCS Houston, but I find that this, with 2 Skyers, is a proper ratio. But I'm going to be honest, in Link Summoning, I'm considering this engine coming out altogether. Even though Odd Eyes Fusion is a strong card, I don't know how often I'm going to have the extra space to pull that off. But Unicorn's really good at outing Masterpiece, because if you have a Joker and Odd Eyes out, you can just punch over Masterpiece, which is really good. And Personas, actually, understand not everyone can play this card, and it is really expensive right now for us here in North America, but it's a walking, you know, it's basically like it's a Life Phoenix while it's an Odd Eyes monster, so you can't use Wisdom Eye with it. It is very strong, and then it can negate extra deck monster effects. Then we have, of course, the 3 Skullcrobat Jokers. Joker's an amazing card. It's a card you want to see in your opening hand. You don't always want to use your Star Time to search, your Time Star Magician to search it, so it's pretty dang solid. Then 3 Wisdom Eyes. Not too much to talk about with Wisdom Eye. Wisdom Eye is an amazing card. It is a Lone Fire Blossom for Pendulum monsters, and you should definitely run that at maximum. Konami will allow you to play. Then I know a lot of you guys are probably about calling me crazy for playing 2 Harmonizing Magician. The main thing with Harmonizing is she's so highly searchable that you're almost always going to have access to her whenever you need her, even with this high card count. And while you could say the high card count justifies playing the 3rd one, I honestly will say that I've resolved the 2nd one a couple of times, because whenever she's Pendulum summoned from the hand, she can't be special summoned from the extra deck. Whenever she's Pendulum summoned, you can grab any magician from your deck, and she's on top of that, she's a tuner. But any other, if she's used her Fusion or Synchro Exceed summon, you have to has to be a magician monster. But the main thing is, as good as it is, it's a R1 card enabler. It's still, like, I still feel like she's not something you need to run at 3 because of all the search cards this deck has. Her Pendulum effect to buff up equal to each of your face-up extra deck monsters can be relevant at times, but it's usually not. It's kind of cute more than anything else. Then, of course, the 3 double iris. Double iris basically targets a dark spellcaster while it's in the Pendulum zone and gifts it and basically turns it into Odd Eyes. And then whenever it's popped by a card effect, it searches a Pendulum Graph card. So this searches your trap card, which is amazing. The trap cards, and then this Pendulum Graph that basically searches every time a magician leaves the field. It's really strong. Then 2 Black Fangs. Link format, I'm considering running 3. The main reason most people run 2 is this is the one that requires opponent's interaction in order to pop itself, which kind of sucks at times. But I find it to be really strong because it allows you to grab any Dark Spellcaster back from your grave. The 3 Purple Poison, I considered bumping it down to 2, but I feel like the card is so strong. First off, it can pump up any Dark Spellcaster by 1200, which combos really well with Double Iris, allows you to out Masterpiece. But it also, whenever it's destroyed by a card effect, a battle card effect, it will pop a card in the field. That's really strong, and Black Fang, basically this allows you to kind of clear out opponent's resource and pop over stuff. Black Fang kind of allows you to grind through Solemn Strike, because whenever it's destroyed, it will special summon a Dark Spellcaster back. I don't play White Wing in this list because, well, for a couple of reasons. 1, I don't run Zark. 2, the issue I found with it is its TCG they changed its text, so its effect is mandatory unless I've read it wrong. So yeah, that kind of sucks that your basic opponent can bait it out that way. So 1 Oath Dragon, this will be going to 2. We get Link summoning, but I still feel like Oath Dragon, I've sworn by 2 Oath Dragon pretty much since it came out, and it's actually really strong. 1 Luster Pendulum. This card is actually really a lot stronger than I thought it was, and the main reason it's good is because it can obviously trigger your Iris Mission turn 1, but the main thing is you can grab it from deck with Ignister, and then it basically gives Ignister free spin material. While it can't be used as Fusion Sync or Exceed Summon, it doesn't specify it can't be used as Link fodder, so you can always special summon it from deck with Ignister, and then you've got 2 monsters to use as Link fodder. So it's actually pretty solid, and Luster's always going to be a strong card. Then the 2 Archfiend Eccentrics, I will pretty much swear by this card in almost any Pendulum deck. She allows you to out annoying stuff that this deck normally struggles, that any Pendulum deck struggles with, like Naturia Beast, and overall a really solid card, searchable via Odd Eyes, Pendulum Dragon up here. The 3 Lunas, I know a lot of players are torn on whether Luna is good or not, but I don't really have a lot to say about Luna. Main thing is she's basically the closest thing we're going to have to Kieran, and she searches a copy of herself on normal summon. There's times where I have this and Joker in hand, and I'm kind of like, okay, I really want to use both normals, but most of the time you want to be using Joker anyways, and this is kind of icing on the cake. She does 2 things really well. She allows you to kind of bait through Dridents and it allows you to kind of play through Dridents and any other annoying stuff your opponent might have. It can get rid of a lot of annoying things. Then 2 cards I swear by now actually in most of my Pendulum decks is 2 copies of Mist Valley Apex Avian. While it can be a little bricky, in this deck I've never really had issues having scale consistency, and this card gives you a constant, especially in your Link summoning, it gives you a constantly recurring 2700 beater that can negate almost anything when it hits the board, and it's always going to be a strong card to me, and if you have this in any combination of like a negations on board, and like the Trap and maybe a Persona Dragon, it's going to give your opponent a bad time. There are 2 Sky Irises and 1 Terraforming. Because I have the lower count on the Sky Iris targets, I end up taking Terraforming down to 1. As good as Sky Iris is, with only 4 targets, you don't necessarily need to see it at all times. Then, of course, the Pendulum deck, so 3 Duelist Alliance. I've actually heard people say that because it's once per turn, you play 2, and unless you only have 2 to 3 targets, I couldn't disagree more. Like, this card is nuts. You run 3 because you want to see it in your opening hand, and honestly, there's been times where I don't even care if I have multiples in my hand. It's that good. Then 2 Pendulum Calls. Pendulum Call, I know people debated playing even 1, and there's something to be said for that, but I honestly find that 2 is kind of the perfect ratio for it, especially with the higher card count. And the other thing you need to remember about Pendulum Call, it's really strong, but like obviously your magicians can't pop themselves, but that doesn't necessarily a bad thing if it's with a trap card, because it'll trigger its send effect. The main thing with Pendulum Call, it allows you to give you a ton of consistency, and you want to be careful with it. You want to hold it. If you think your opponent has Ash in hand, you want to hold this for your last search. Like you want to use Joker Duelist Alliance first before you use this. In one Pendulum Graph, I know a lot of players play 2-2, but I looked at the OCG builds and saw they were only running one of this. Then I did some thinking, and I've honestly never activated the second one of this. And it's really good, but in times it can be a little bit of a win more card, but I find that it's perfect at 1. Then for the fusions, we have the 1 Odd Eyes Fusion, 1 Pendulum Fusion. While Odd Eyes Fusion I still feel is a really strong card, the extra deck space that it takes up honestly has me debating cutting it entirely into link format. The same thing with Pendulum Fusion is it's a little difficult to create those big fusion boards under link summoning's restrictions, so I'm iffy. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm iffy on these 2 cards. But for now, at least in the current rules, it's fine. Of course, traps, we have 2-time Pendulum Graphs. I know a lot of players say you only need 1, but it's so damn good. You will see yourself using the second one a lot. Not only is it a Regeki break, but on top of that, you can, I honestly have forgot about, never hardly used the send effect, but you can use cards like Time Star Magician or Pendulum Caller in effect, and you can protect your scales, and then you'll get the effect to send. So you'll essentially get rid of 2 cards from your opponent almost every turn, and then the amount of things this card can do in terms of your grind game, being able to punch through back row over time, is just tremendous, and I love it to pieces. So for the side deck, guys, I have 2 Denko Sekkas. Pretty much Denko is always going to be a staple in my side decks. I feel like as long as there's back row, Denko will be a very good card. I'm a little iffy on it, going forward, because I don't know how many traps will be running around, but there'll always be those trap-heavy matchups, and I feel like Denko is always going to be a solid side deck card. Going second, Sideblocker is a little interesting card. It's an oldie but a goodie for me. It's monster effect, basically sort of like a prohibition on legs. The important thing, it's good going first because you can call especially with Zoo being a popular thing, you can summon this and call whatever card you think is going to be most relevant. If you're playing against Zoo example, you can summon this and call Dryden and then make rank 4 with it. You can also, going second, you can actually use it if they open Anti-Spell Fragrance. You can summon this and call Anti-Spell Fragrance and it'll turn it off. And unfortunately it doesn't work against Dimensional Barrier because it's a lingering effect. So it's unfortunate, but I feel like Sideblocker is still a really strong card. You should definitely consider it your side. There's a couple cards that will be changing in this side deck, though. I'll talk about those in a minute. 3 Ghost Ogres. Ghost Ogre is always going. I feel like Ghost Ogre is probably one of the best side deck. A lot of decks would mainboard it, but with Magicians, you're playing a very combo-oriented deck. You want to maximize combo pieces. That's why I don't have Ghost Ogres in the main. If I was playing the Zodiac engine, you could definitely run this at 3, and in the main maybe, but I just find that this tends to be this way. We have 2 Kaijus. You could definitely run a 3rd Kaiju along with these, but I have these 2 because they're level 7, and they have cool interactions with Luna. You can Kaiju opponent's monster, then use Luna to bounce the Kaiju because they don't have a Kaiju in deck. And these are level 7s, so you can make rank 7s with them. It doesn't come up a lot because I've cut some of the rank 7s from the extra deck, but yeah, 2 Dark Holes, same thing, we're using these to go second. The main thing is board wipes are still pretty good, and this card I'm probably going to change. There's 2 Pendulum Impenetrable. The whole theory with this card is that it's really good at dealing with stuff that stops my scale effects it stops removal, and it's searchable via Duelist Alliance. But the whole thing with this card is you don't really need to, first off, you don't really want to search it, so that's the main thing. So it's unfortunate, but yeah, but I still feel like it's not a terrible card, but you could definitely side something like Dimensional Barriers. And 2 Twin Twisters. I feel like with everything now at 3, you have extra pieces to pitch with Twin Twisters, and honestly, Twin Twisters sets up some good combos if you have Black Fang, because you can pitch a Magician to the grave, then use Black Fang's Pendulum effect to res it. It just has, but obviously, Cosmic Cyclone is probably a little bit better now because of True Dracos. So, and then for the extra deck, there's a couple changes I'm going to also note for you guys. I'm going to be changing, which is we have 2 Time Star Magicians. I was originally running 1, but then I did some testing, and the second one kept coming up. But there's a lot of times what I would do turn one is combo off, have this with something with like maybe like a Luna and a Nightmare next to it, and I kept finding that my opponent would just Regeki and I'd be salty. So that's when this like you don't really want to. I don't play Emerald in this extra deck, and you really don't want to waste an Emerald thing just to put this back so you can use it again. So I definitely highly recommend two. Speaking of Nightmare, One Evil Swarm Nightmare. Nightmare is really good for turn one plays. Basically, if you're unfamiliar with what it does, because it's obviously German, you can't read it. It's basically like a Book of Moon. Whenever opponent's monster special summon, and it doesn't target. It also comes monsters. So if they Pendulum summon a bunch of monsters or summon multiple monsters at once, you can put them all face down. Zodiacs just cannot effectively, in theory, of course, I haven't really made it against the deck, but in theory, they don't really have a way to get this off the board very, very, very efficiently, other than like literally just going into a Trident to get to pop this and then getting it booked anyways. So they just don't have a lot of effective ways, at least in theory, of course, to get over a Nightmare, because the biggest monster they're going to have is Thoroughblade at 1700 with a Tinky. The One Dweller, this is mostly for dinosaurs, dinosaurs and all those, do you want to turn off, the biggest thing with True Kings is that, and True Dracos makes them scary, is the True King dinosaurs and True Dracos is all their floating with that they have, and Dweller kind of turns that off. Magicians also and floating don't always get along, so that's why Dweller's in here. One Castell is probably definitely one of the. Castell's always those cards you can kind of debate, but I always feel like getting massive spot removal even into Link format will be bad. Then this is actually the cards I'm going to be taking out, which is the Utopia package. I'm going to be honest, Utopia package is probably at the weakest point in our game that it's been since we've gotten it. And I feel like these are going to be a Tornado Dragon and a Magister Paladin, and maybe a Diamond Direwolf in the Link format, because Diamond Direwolf can actually pop itself to open up your zone to summon something else. But I just feel like you can't really use these to get over Masterpiece like you would just about any other boss monster, and I feel like the best way to deal with Masterpiece, you have Purple Poison and other ways. So I think I'm going to be taking this out for a Tornado Dragon and a Magister Paladin, and maybe the Paladin will change out for a Diamond Direwolf in the future. Then, of course, the Odd Eyes package. These are the only rank 7s I play. I just found that with the level 7 count is really low for this deck as compared to previous builds where I was playing Dragon Pit, Dragon Calling Magician. And I feel like this is all you really need. If you really need to want to put an Odd Eyes Absolute back, you can use Oath Dragon's Monster Effect to put it back in the extra deck. And these are basically like the bare minimum you really need for the combo. Then for the Synchros, we have the one Stardust Dragon. Stardust is a really solid card because against Zodiacs, you use it basically if you summon this out when turn one and it forces them not to use their Dryad, and also turns off board wipes. It also helps with cards that might pop your scales like Twin Twisters, and it can negate those right away. Also, when you get links and it negates something and special summons during the end phase, it will actually go to the main monster zone, which will clear up your extra deck, which is really good. The one Cyframe Lord Omega. Omega is probably the best synchro monster in our game, and I just feel like there's no real downsides to running it in this deck, because you have banished things, and on top of that, in Link format, you can have it banish itself to open up your extra deck. And it returns, of course, to the main monster zone. One Ignister. Ignister's obviously one of the most powerful synchro monsters of all time. There's no debate on that. And the main thing with Ignister is that you're going to be using it. You can actually use it as, it's kind of a little bit, if you get it out and you have another monster, you can actually use it to, after you spin and you need to open up more zones, you can use it to make links with it. So that's really nice. But the main thing is, you're going to be using it to pop a Pendulum monster to get rid of cards your opponent controls. And that's always, Ignister's love is your life. One builds it, you can go into it, and it's really good against True Dracos. True Dracos, as long as that's a deck, True Dracos just do not have an out to this card. Like, at least, they basically have to draw their one of Stormforth, or they can't out this. So that's actually really strong. Then for the fusions, with the one Vortex and the one Starving Venom, these are honestly the most debated slots I've had in my extra deck, if I'm completely honest. Because while Vortex is really strong, and we did see the YCS play where the guy made an Absolute Dragon, then sent it to the grave with a trap card, which is a really cool play. But the thing with these cards is that they suck up a ton of extra deck space between Link monsters and the other things I want to add this extra deck with the new Supreme King monsters coming out. I just don't know if there'll be room. But Vortex is still a really strong card, and being able to Odd Eyes Fusion it straight out on your opponent to break your opponent's board is always going to be a good play. Starving Venom is actually kind of a new little tech here. You can make it with Pendulum Fusion with your even... Since the Dark Monsters in the Pendulum Zone are monsters on the field due to the way the card's worded, you can actually fusion summon Starving Venom using Pendulum Fusion, and it gives you another way to get over Masterpiece, which is the card we all need to get over. So anyway, guys, about comes in the deck profile. Let me you guys think of the deck profile down in the comment section below, and come to the end of the video. Go ahead and enjoy this little preview of my Link Magician build.